All right, folks. This right here is going to be the unboxing of the new Phoenix Trinity Hero Grip. Here is your grip. It says Phoenix Trinity Firearms. This product must be installed and safety checked by a qualified gunsmith. No liability expressed or implied for damage or injury which may result from improper installation or use of this product. Warranty is limited to replacement due to manufacturer defects. So I'm guessing manufacturer defects only. So let's take a look at it. This is your Phoenix Trinity Hero Grip. It is made of 7075 aluminum, so it's very lightweight. Okay, the texture is fantastic. It just feels great in the hands. You'll see checkering on both sides. Obviously, you got front strap checkering, and as well as on the mainspring housing. Okay, the mainspring housing comes empty. Obviously, you're gonna have to get those parts or transfer the parts over from your current firearm, and we'll go through all that. It actually comes with its own magazine button as well, which is kind of cool. But I will say it doesn't give you the any kind of threading for a paddle or aftermarket buttons and all that. Okay, so got a really nice double undercut under the trigger guard, and feels great in the hands. Great for the support hand. Okay, you put that finger up in there and it feels good. It just feels like it's at home, and when you're getting a good master grip on the firearm. This is going to be your standard lip on the bottom of the grip for any standard STI magwell. Okay, I've installed several Staccato, current generation Staccato magwells, as well as Phoenix Trinity, Akai, Limcat. They all fit. They all work. Now, I will say the new generation Staccato magwells are a little tight. All you have to do is slip it into the front, tap it in with your mallet until the pin lines up. But it does work. Okay. Your position for the front frame grip screws are all there. Okay. So let's go ahead and take off this mag button. Small little flathead screwdriver, and you're gonna find a little spot, push the button a little bit, turn the screw counterclockwise, and that's it. That little pin stays in there. If you need to service that, all you'd have to do, and you want to make sure you don't send this flying, is just like that. You're going to pull that spring out, and this is all included from Phoenix Trinity. I'm just going to push that back in, turn it, and leave that retained in there. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to talk about, one more thing, the texture, right? So the texture is great, feels aggressive enough for, your weekend trip to the range and occasional competition shoot, but also smooth enough to be your daily carry, your EDC carry. If it's up against your chest and your stomach, if you appendix carry, it's not going to make your skin raw like some of my open division competition guns that I use with the really aggressive texture and stippling. So this is going to feel great, kind of a balance between a weekend warrior and also competition, as well as everyday carry. So I'm loving this. I can't wait to put this on. They advertise the Hero Grip to be compatible with all the generations of the Staccatos, or current generation Staccatos, the Springfield Armory Prodigy, and other 2011 platforms as well, like a Nighthawk and some other customs. Okay, so great grip. People have asked how heavy this is. I'd say it wouldn't be any heavier than a polymer. It's that light, so it's not really going to add too much weight to your firearm, but I think it's going to help with a lot of your recoil feel. Okay, so real impressed with how they made it. It's solid and very lightweight. So let's go ahead and proceed here. I'm going to be putting this on my first generation Staccato P. Okay, you notice it's a little different from the current Staccatos. The current Staccatos have a much shorter dust cover. So this one was their first prototype Staccato P made when they were still branded as STI. Okay, it did come with the new Gen 2 grip, but I had an old DVC open grip lying around, and I put it on this gun, fitted with some trigger work, and I also put on the Phoenix Trinity magwell, which is really cool because it's curved inward and self-correcting for twist and everything. So that thing's awesome. We're going to be putting that on the grip as well. So let's go ahead and get started. As always, you want to check for clear. So that's all clear. Here's some basic tools you need to take down any kind of 1911 or 2011. Now, by all means, this is just the tools that I use. If you have your own set of tools that you like to use, this is really just a guideline of what you'll need that'll help with your process. Okay, so a lightweight mallet with a Delrin or plastic end, a brass end would be nice, just adds a little weight to it. Armorer's vice block, flathead screwdriver, tiny little one. You're gonna need some small wrenches for your front frame grip screw, okay? It helps to have two of them so you can prevent it from spinning if you put one on the other side, okay? Another tool that you'll need is the proper wrench for your grip frame, okay? So your grip screw, you're gonna have to remove that. I also have a wrench for my magazine button, okay? I have a paddle on this one. It's an old STI paddle, and it takes a little screw right here. That's gonna have to be removed so the magazine button can come out on the side, okay? So, and last but not least, you're gonna need a pin punch. Just a basic pin punch will work. To take off some parts like this pin right here, and to help aid with the removal of your takedown pin and your slide lock. Okay. On this one, I actually have a nitro fin installed onto my Staccato. So let's go ahead and proceed with the installation. Okay, so first thing you're going to want to do is always make sure your firearm is clear, and which it is. I never keep any ammo near my gunsmithing table. Okay, so we're going to hold this open and line up the little U notch on the slide. I don't know if you can see that right there with your takedown pin. If you have a nitro fin like this, it's so easy, just push it out or pull it out just like that. Okay, now if you have one of your standard takedown pins, it's going to help if you turn it to the other side. First, you line up that little half moon shape right there with your takedown pin and just push it through with your pin punch. Okay, and that's all that is. Okay, so I'm going to take the slide off. On the Staccatos, they come with a captured, with the front bushing, captured guide rod spring. Okay, so, well, captured with the bushing, I'm sorry, yeah. So that little cap right there, we're going to set these aside because we're not going to be using that. All we're concerned about is the removal of the grip from the frame. Okay, now it's 2011, so it's going to be a three-piece. You got the slide, you got your frame, and then your grip. Okay, so at this point, what we're going to do, okay, is you're going to hold this hammer, you're going to pull the trigger, and release the hammer. And you don't want to do this dry firing, right? So you want to release the hammer all the way forward. Okay. Now what that does is there's a hammer strut going into the mainspring housing, and when you release that all the way forward, what you're doing is you're releasing all the pressure from that hammer strut going into the mainspring. Okay. So first things first, what I'm going to do is take off this little paddle right there. That was easy. And the next thing I'm going to do is use this pin punch Line it up with your vise block, and we're going to tap out this pin holding the magwell. Okay. It's fairly easy. Sometimes you'll have to pull the rest of it out. Again, this is a Phoenix Trinity magwell. So it's made by them. You can also get it from their website. At this point, now that the pressure is relieved from the mainspring, you should be able to just pull the mainspring out. Now, this is a little unique. I had this mainspring and my back strap pinned so that it stays forward. Now, I only have this little pin right here because it goes into the beaver tail, keeping it pinned forward. So on most standard 2011s and 1911s, they're all going to be, free to move back here, okay? And you'd want that if it's your carry gun. I use this for competition, so I liked it pinned. And so my only safety would be the thumb safety for that. Okay, so we're going to take the mainspring off and just set that aside. Now at this point, you can pull the hammer back, and this is where it gets a little tricky. You're going to have to take off the thumb safety, okay? And so to take off the thumb safety, what you want to do is have the hammer back, all the way back in the cock position, okay? And there's really no pressure on it anymore because you've taken out the mainspring, okay? So there's no more pressure on the spring up against the hammer strut. And now what you've got is a hammer that kind of floats around. So you want to pull this all the way back. And what you want to do is put your thumb safety about halfway up. So that's going to be all the way locked. That hammer won't go forward. That's all the way down. What you're going to do is find the middle spot, somewhere around there. And what I'm going to do is get my flathead screwdriver right behind the thumb safety. Now, the cool thing about some thumb safeties is they put a little notch in them. On the Staccatos, it can get a little tricky, but if you get a really flathead screwdriver, you should be able to slip it underneath and pry it out just like this. And so since I've worked on this gun many times and cleaned it, it was fairly easy to get this off. Now at this point, you'd also want to make sure your thumb safety spring doesn't go shooting out, okay? So you want to keep your thumb there as you're removing your thumb safety, just to make sure you don't lose this spring. So I'm going to set this aside. So I've taken out the left side of the thumb safety. I'm going to flip this back all the way like this and remove this side. I'm just going to pull this out. Okay, and that thumb safety also holds in your beaver tail. Okay. At this point, you're going to have everything exposed. This is, it's a little caught under there. This is your sear spring. That's going to be just laying in there. So we're going to just lay that aside. Okay. At this point, you'll see a couple of internal components. And it's going to help if you turn it over to this side. All right. So you're going to see 2 holes here. 3 here, actually. That's going to be for your beaver tail. Okay. We took that off already. This one right here is going to be for your hammer. So we're going to push this through with your pin punch. Comes right out, nice and easy. And there's your hammer. And again, this was what that hammer strut was doing. It was going, this hammer strut goes into your mainspring. Okay. So we'll show you how to move those parts over to the new mainspring later. Okay. Now I'm not going to pin the grip safety on the new Hero grip. All right, so the last pin you'll have is this one right here. You're going to push it from right to left, okay? You'll see as soon as I do that, your disconnector and sear will fall right out. So I'm going to just capture that in my hands here and catch that. And this is your sear and disconnector, okay? if you're ever wondering how to reinstall these, it's real simple. You just have that disconnector with that face facing down and this here up like this. And that pin went right through here, just like that. So often what I'll do is I'll make sure this edge right here is nice and shiny, as well as this one right here, and just polishing that down, as well as the sides and the top of the disconnector. Anyway, we're gonna set those aside, and we're almost there. Here we have my magazine button. I'm gonna take this one off. I'm gonna push that in just a little bit, flathead screwdriver, and just turn it counterclockwise towards the magazine button. And that's it. That comes out. Of course, I had to remove that paddle first to be able to get this out, right? So now this is going to be pretty easy from here on out. I'm going to take the wrench that I have, Allen wrench for the grip screw. Okay. Now on the newer Staccatos, I noticed that they were a little tougher to remove, so just be aware of that. Don't strip that screw. Okay. They probably come from the factory with a little bit of Loctite, so it helps to maybe warm it up a little bit. But that's all that is. And what happens is behind it is the female threaded end of your grip frame screw. Okay, so you have your screw and it goes into threads just like that. Okay, and so this should come out. If this gets stuck inside the grip, what you want to do is just tap it out with your mallet. Okay, so you're gonna have to do that with both sides. And since I do this often and clean it often, my screws are gonna be much easier to remove. So this is what I was referring to. If that gets stuck in there, what you want to do is just, without damaging your threads, you want to just kind of get on the sides and just push that through, and it comes out on the inside of the grip. Okay, so it's just like that. It's D-shaped with the flat end pointing upward. It'll go in just like that. Okay, so last but not least is your tiny little front frame grip screws. Okay, so I'm just gonna line this up. I'm gonna put one on one side here and hold that there. I'm gonna grab my other one. It's the same size Allen wrench on both sides. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna lay this down this way, is unscrew it while I'm holding the other side. Okay, it's broken free. So at this point, I'm gonna take off this grip screw. It's actually coming out on the other side. And that's it. That white residue is just a little bit of blue Loctite that I used to install. Okay. That front frame grip screw. To get the rest of it off, you'd want to use your pin punch, and you should be able to just push it out, or use a mallet and just kind of gently pound it out. Now at this time, you're ready to remove your grip. Okay, you've removed your front frame grip screw. Now you can see right through it, and you've taken off your grip frame screws. Okay, so I'm gonna slide this off just like that. I've got my frame all broken down, ready to accept the Hero grip. At this point, I'm gonna take off my Chile grip. Sorry, my Chile trigger and trigger bow. Now, I have one of these because it was available and it was a nice and short trigger shoe. Great for my shorter fingers. I'm able to reach the trigger a lot easier when I'm shooting. But Phoenix Trinity has a really cool one, just released with the Hero grip with knurling on the front end. So I'm planning to get something like that in the future. And so at this point, we are ready to install the Hero grip on our frame. All right, let's go ahead and reinstall the Hero grip frame now onto your frame. I have the Chile short trigger shoe trigger and trigger bow, and just from fitting this in, it is just nice and smooth. I'm loving this. So this right here is your standard STI trigger. I've seen STI make flat ones in the front. Great for gunsmiths who want to custom fit a trigger. But even for the STI trigger or staccato trigger, nice and smooth. There may have been work done on this trigger for another frame before. I can't remember. What happens is if your trigger, your custom setup, your trigger shoe rides a little tight in that grip frame, what you're going to want to do is get a file and kind of file the top and bottom so that it's nice and smooth, and that it'll kind of move nice and easy in there. And that's what you want. You don't want too much, foul off too much or anything like that. So you want that to be fitting in there perfect and also just moving freely, okay? So you definitely don't want to do anything on the Hero grip frame because it's much more expensive to replace this than to replace trigger and trigger shoe, okay? So taking off a little bit off the top and bottom will help get that nice and smooth in there, okay? Another thing you're going to notice is the on top of your on your trigger bow, okay, is this little tab right here. Now there are different ways that these tabs appear on different triggers and trigger bows. On this one, you've got a single tab on one side that you can bend out. And so what this does is it gets rid of your pre-travel. So on this one, it was bent really far forward to take up a lot of that pre-travel slack on my old grip frame. So on this one, it was dialed in for that. So what I'm going to do is just kind of bend this back just a little bit. That's about good. And just have that reset for the new grip frame, okay? I have here another trigger that I've installed on other guns. And so you notice on this model right here, there are 2 tabs, okay? So you can bend 2 tabs out. And so everyone just does it a little different. And but it does the same thing. Get a little flathead screwdriver in there and you can bend that little tab out. And that gets rid of the pre-travel because that tab goes up against the inside of your frame. Okay, just like that. That little tab right there. Okay, what dials in your post-travel is the set screw that's inside the trigger. And that's going to be on all 2011 triggers as well. So you'll see a little set screw at the bottom of your trigger. Just get your Allen wrench in there and dial out the post-travel. And this tab on the trigger bow is your pre-travel. So before we get the grip frame on the frame, you're going to have to put the trigger in first. All right, at this time, you're going to slip. Let's keep that trigger forward. All right, so pry them open just a little bit. And at this point, you're going to slip your grip frame onto your staccato frame. There it is. I'm going to make sure at this point your trigger is moving freely. Okay. We're going to go ahead and reinstall the grip frame screws, the front frame grip screw, and your magazine button. So I'm going to get the new Hero magazine button, insert that. I'm going to take my flathead screwdriver, and instead of counterclockwise, I'm going to go clockwise now. So I'm going to press that button just a little bit with my index finger, and find that spot where the screw holds. And once you've turned that flathead screw, that magazine button stays in there. Okay, so now my trigger stays in there. All right, we're gonna work on that later. Now at this point, what I'm gonna do is reinstall my grip frame screws, okay? And the reason why I wanna do that now is because when I'm working on the sear disconnector and your, you just don't wanna get too far without making sure this grip is on there, okay, and secured. So I'm gonna take the female end, the threads of the grip frame screw on my index finger and just kind of slide it in till it lines up with the hole. Now, I don't know if you could see that in there. You want to make sure the flat side of the grip screw, the frame screw, okay, the threads, the flat side is facing upward up against your frame, okay? You want that in there just like that. And I'm gonna keep my finger on it. Just make sure that's nice and flush. I'm gonna get my grip frame, or your grip frame screw, the wrench for that. At this point, I would normally put a little bit of blue Loctite on the threads, just because these screws are known to come loose. So I'm just gonna tighten that real quick. I'm gonna do the same with the other side. Right on my index finger there. Now it's gonna be a little tricky if you have like fat fingers. It's perfectly understandable. Just get that in there and just make sure the flat end is facing upward, okay? I'm gonna line that up and install this. Okay, so once that's on there tight, you can rest assured that now the grip frame is secured onto the frame, okay? Now at this point, I could put in the front frame grip screw, but I'm just gonna save that till the end because I like doing that last. That's when I know everything is installed, and honestly, you really don't even need that. That's just there just to keep it's really not holding anything down. All right, at this point, I'm going to assemble the disconnector and the sear. All right, so if you're not sure, if you've never done this before, it's real simple. You want to keep this flat side down, okay? And I'm going to take your sear and just lay this in just like that with the sear edge facing up. Okay, so you just want to have it like this. At this point, what you're going to do is I'm going to hold this just like this facing me, okay? And I'm going to stick my finger in and just be able to insert my sear and disconnector into the rear. The disconnector is going to pop up the top, okay? And my finger is in there kind of just holding it in place, all right? At this point, what I'm going to do is take my pin punch and just kind of make sure they're all lined up. You see that? So your sear, your disconnector are lined up in there. I'm going to take the smaller of the two pins, okay? This one's for your hammer. The smaller one is going to be for your sear and disconnector. So I'm going to just pull that pin punch out. I'm going to reinstall this pin. And so at this point, I know that's captured in there with that pin, okay? Now, one side is flared. You're going to figure out which side is flared and which side is smooth, and it only goes in from the left side of the gun to the right. Okay, so this is the flared end of that pin. You're gonna push that in, and it's gonna hold your sear and disconnector. Okay, so that's not gonna go anywhere. Now, if you turn it over and it's a loose pin, that might fall out. So you might wanna keep your finger there, okay, throughout the process, or work on the firearm kind of like on this side, so gravity will keep that pin inward. Okay, so at this point, I'm gonna grab my hammer, insert this into your frame here, and just line up that pin, okay? Again, you can use your pin punch and kind of just guide that through so that the holes are lined up. And at this point, I'm gonna take the wider of the two pins, okay? This side's gonna be the flared end. I'm gonna put this and through the frame and through the hammer, okay? So now your hammer is captured, okay? So you'd wanna have the hammer all the way forward from here on out. So what I'm gonna have to do is pull that trigger so the sear clears the hammer and that hammer manually pushed forward, okay? At this point, what I like to do is install the sear spring. Okay, I'm gonna move this hammer strut out of the way. Oops, the hammer got forward a little bit. I'm gonna move the strut out of the way, and I'm gonna take my 3-fingered sear spring. I often do work on these as well. You might wanna polish this end on this side. Maybe your sear spring. I'm gonna slip this in top first. Okay. Now you'll notice there's 3 fingers on the sear spring. The leftmost finger is going to be up against your sear. Okay. The middle finger is gonna be up against your disconnector. And this 3rd finger over here on the right, that's gonna be for your grip, safety, okay? So that's what gives this the bounce, okay? This 3rd finger over here. Okay, so I'm gonna keep my thumb on this right here, and at this point, I'm gonna lay my hammer strut down, all right? After I do that, what I'm gonna wanna do is put your beaver tail grip safety back on. And as you're doing that, what you want to do is make sure that your hammer strut is centered in that grip frame screw. Or sorry, your back strap safety, okay? Your grip safety. All right, so what I'm gonna do is, because that grip safety is held in by your thumb safeties, I'm gonna put in the right side thumb safety first. So I'm gonna put that in, okay? And at this point, I'm still putting pressure and kind of holding everything together with that safety so that the sear spring stays in position and your hammer strut stays right in the middle there, okay? So I'm gonna insert the right side of the thumb safety and just flip that forward, and that's gonna go right into your hero grip frame, just in there, just like that. All right. Now sometimes you might have a thumb safety with a longer edge there. You're gonna have to shave that down to get this passed into the hole, into the slot there, I should say, for your on your hero grip. Okay. So I'm gonna keep my thumb there, keep that retained in there. I'm gonna move my finger and come over to the left side of the gun. At this point, you're going to want to reinstall the spring and detent for your takedown. That the front part pops out, and that's for your takedown pin. And the longer side of the pin, okay, goes in the back, and that's going to be your detent for your thumb safety. All right. So sometimes a drop of oil right there would be perfect. I am going to grab my left side thumb safety. At this point, what you want to do is pull the hammer back all the way. And you want to get into that position where those thumb safeties are halfway up. Not all the way up and not all the way down, but halfway. Okay, so I'm going to insert the left side thumb safety. This is where it gets a little tricky. All right, so I'm going to position it about halfway. I'm going to take my flathead screwdriver, the real thin one, the small side, and I am going to push in the detent as I am putting pressure downward on the left side thumb safety. Okay, I'm going to slip my flathead screwdriver in there, push the detent forward, and at the same time, perfect. Got it in the first try. I was able to snap in the thumb safety and push that all the way through, and you'll see that now it's pinned together to the right side of the thumb safety, and it is functioning properly. All right. So you'll notice when the hammer is all the way back, your hammer strut comes out the bottom. So what I'm going to want to do is hold on to the trigger so I can pull that hammer all the way forward again. Not in the resting position, but all the way forward. What I want to do is have that hammer strut go all the way up so that your it's going to be much easier to install your mainspring. There's going to be no pressure on the hammer strut with it all the way forward and all the way up. Okay, so I'm just going to set this aside right now and talk about the mainspring. So your mainspring comes empty, and you're going to have to move the parts over from your previous mainspring. Okay, so on this armorer's block, I have a little position. Actually, I have to take this pin out. So let's do it another way. It's real simple here. I'm going to take my pin punch. I'm going to push in on this spring right here, on the mainspring. There's a lot of pressure in there, okay? And what I'm going to want to do is, at the same time, on the back side of the mainspring, there is a pin right here that holds in your mainspring and cup, okay? So I'm going to lay this down on my block, and I'm going to keep my little flathead screwdriver right on top of that pin. As I'm pushing in the mainspring, I'm going to push out on this pin, and it's going to come out on the back side of the mainspring. Okay, so I'm going to move this over just a little bit. I'm going to push in on the mainspring, and this pin will get pushed out. Okay, you know what I'm going to use? This small Allen wrench that I have. Yeah, that'll be much easier. Here you go. I'm going to push that mainspring in. Push that pin out. Again, there's a lot of pressure on that mainspring. I've already pushed that pin out. What I'm going to do is keep my thumb over that spring in that cup and pull my wrench out. Okay, so here's your mainspring cup that goes up against your hammer strut. Here's your mainspring. I believe I have a 14-pound mainspring in there. And there should be one more piece that comes out. This is the little detent that goes up against the bottom pin that holds in your magwell. Okay, so I'm going to take that and drop that into the hero mainspring. I am going to put in the spring and the cup. I'm going to find this little pin. So this little pin is what holds in that cup and mainspring, okay? I'm gonna use my Armor's Block 4 1911s. And there's a notch right there that's designed for these mainsprings, okay? So at this point, I'm gonna keep that in there. I'm gonna push down on this and insert the pin once it's all the way at the bottom. Okay, I'm gonna push that in here. Once I insert that pin, I know that that mainspring is captured by that pin. And so that's why it helps to have this block. And so what's happening is I push that in here and that pin goes right in. When I let go, it stays in there just like that, okay? So, and if I look through this hole right here, you should be able to see that little detent that we inserted first. And that's gonna hold in your pin that holds your magwell. All right, so we're gonna be installing the mainspring onto the grip now. Mainspring housing slips right in. Again, I wanna make sure that hammer strut is all the way up. And at this point, it helps to flip your grip upside down. Make sure that hammer strut is all the way forward. I'm gonna pull this up a little bit. I'm gonna flip it upside down just like this. Let gravity do its trick. And I'm going to slip on this mainspring. Oh, that's why my hammer isn't all the way forward. And I'm just gonna give this a little tap because I have a different sear spring in there. It's the Infinity sear spring. It just happens to pop out a little bit more. And so I'm gonna keep that. I had to use a mallet to kind of nudge that forward, okay? And so at this point, I'm gonna check that the grip safety is captured up against that mainspring, okay? Now you remember on my previous grip, I had it pinned. This time I'm gonna leave that grip safety in the unpinned position and in functional capacity. So I'm gonna line up those pins right here, or line up the holes. This little pin punch, just make sure that's all lined up. And at this point, I'm going to insert my magwell. Okay, so this can get a little tricky if you have the Staccato magwell. They are really tight. And so what I recommend doing is slapping in the front side first, and the back side will follow. And what you might have to do is take the rubber end of your mallet and just kind of tap it from the front to the back to get those holes lined up. All right. Now this one's going to be a direct fit because this magwell is from Phoenix Trinity, and they make a fantastic magwell in my opinion. What you're going to do is take your pin, make sure that's all lined up, lay it on your vise block. You can get this started. Should be able to go all the way through, and it might help to finish off with your pin punch. Once that's into the grip, you are basically done, okay? At this point, you should be able to pull the hammer back and just test for function, make sure that hammer strut is lined up perfectly with your mainspring on the inside. I'm gonna keep my thumb over the hammer, and I'm just going to dry fire test. At this point, I'm also gonna check and see if I have my pre-travel set to the desired length, and I think that's great right there. There's only about 1 millimeter or 2 of travel before I hit the wall. Once I break that wall, that post-travel is up against the mag button, and that looks like it's working perfect. Okay, So you also want to make sure your thumb safety is working. Okay, your hammer isn't going to drop if you have your thumb safety up. Now that it's down, I still can't do because I didn't operate this. Your grip safety, and that hammer is dropping. So functionally, this is installed correctly and is working fine. So at this point, I'm going to finish off with the slide here. Reinstall the guide rod spring. I'll put this little cup in first. Now this is a bull barrel, so it's going to be out through the bottom. Your barrel comes out through the front. There is no bushing on this model, Staccato P. So I'm just going to compress the spring a little bit. Make sure that guide rod's all lined up. You're going to want to put a little bit of oil on the frame rails. And reinstall the slide. At this point, it should be easy. You're going to line up the little barrel lug with your pin punch. I'm going to reinstall my nitro fin takedown. I'm going to line up that little half moon and just kind of work that nitro fin in through past the detent. Once that's in, you can function test, and there it is. Your hero grip installed onto a Staccato. And again, this is compatible with the Springfield Prodigies as well as other 2011 style grip frames. Okay, so that's pretty much it. At this point, I won't be able to install my paddle again unless I get another one or I can drill and tap this one with this threading on this little screw, and so I can reinstall the paddle. I might do that. And last but not least, you're going to be installing your grip frame screws. Okay, and I'm just going to save that and end the video here. If you have any questions, feel free to comment, and you can always reach out to Phoenix Trinity and ask them if you have any questions. I think the toughest part was just being able to adjust this trigger for this grip frame. But if you get their trigger shoe and trigger bow, it's going to be real simple. Trigger shoe's already fitted for that grip. And so it's only if you have aftermarket triggers where fitting can be an issue, okay? Your stock polymer STI grip, your trigger shoes are going to be often kind of loose in there. You got other ones like this that are meant to be machined, to fit your grips. So this one was from Atlas, is the Gepard trigger. So this one's a nice one too. I just happen to have the Chile on there just because it's a smaller shoe, and I have shorter fingers, so that works perfect for me. But I'm real happy with this grip frame from Hero, the Hero grip frame from Phoenix Trinity. And if you're looking for something like this for the weekend or for EDC or for carry, this is a great option. It gets you a metal frame on your Staccato or your Prodigy, and also be able to have the right amount of texture that you'd want for competition shooting as well. So this is really cool. I hope you enjoyed the video and the install. If you have any questions, reach out, and I can help you through the process. And that's pretty much it. Enjoy, and see you at the range.